Let me take you back to the mid-2000s. The Xbox 360, PS3, and Nintendo Wii all finally released. The console wars were in full swing, and the HD era of video games had officially begun. Me and my younger siblings were mostly confined with last-gen systems like the GameCube, PS2, and original Xbox, as once the next generation hit the scene, they became massively discounted. The only new system we really got to play was the Nintendo Wii because it was much cheaper than the other consoles. The only sibling who had a newer game system was my older brother because he had saved enough money to get one himself, and me and the other siblings weren't allowed to touch it. In retrospect, it made sense. When little kids get angry at games or themselves, they start breaking shit. I remember going through 3 original DSs because they kept getting destroyed. So my parents understood that it would be inadvisable to let any of us play the older bro's fancy new 360, which was around $500 at the time. Now, I'll admit, out of the 2 HD consoles, the PS3 was the one I was most interested in, but that's a completely different story for another time. Regardless, I was still enamored with the 360. The controllers were so big and built for punishment. I mean, you could probably effectively beat the shit out of someone with one, they were so durable. And the games weren't like anything I've ever seen before. Then again, I hadn't had much versatile experience with games at that time. Luckily for me, I would end up having a chance to play my older brother's 360 and try out a variety of games. You'll have to forgive me as my memory is incredibly faint, so I can't be too confident in chronological order here, but I think I know what my first 360 game was. Oh, hell yeah, man. Dude, Marble Blast Ultra is fucking awesome. I'd like to say this was my first 360 game. Out of all my younger brothers, I was seen as the most even-tempered, so I got 360 privileges, though it was still very limited. Again, I'm not too sure on the specific details as it was so long ago, but my best guess was this was a very cheap game to pick up for my brother, and since he most likely didn't really want me playing his other games, probably thought this one was a better pick. And it's not a bad pick, as Marble Blast is pleasantly simple. A standard obstacle course game where the only goal is to get to the end. Maybe collect some gems to unlock the exit, got some power-ups which are fun to use. The gameplay, you might say, is quite similar to Monkey Ball, which predates the Marble Blast games, except you control the ball itself rather than the stage, if that makes sense. Honestly, it's really nothing much to write home about. If I had just played it for the first time today, I'd say it's a fun little time sink if there's nothing else to do. But since I played it at such a young age and having it be my first 360 game, it left a sizable impression. The game's presentation went a long way for me. For as simple as it looks, it really does have some nice texture work and a solid 60 FPS for an early 360 game. The marble itself is like the nicest looking marble ever in a video game. I know that's a weird compliment, but fuck man, look at it. Look how round it is. Look how good the reflections look. The sound design is great. All the various sound effects are classic and a treat for the ears. That voice whenever you get a power-up always captivated me.
Gyro mode. Super speed. Super jump.
The music, Tim Trance, is a track that I still listen to frequently to this day. Never gets old, which is good since it's like the only song in the game. Though there is more music if you press tab on the free PC release, which is how I play it now. It's a little finicky, but otherwise a very stable way to play this game today. I had only just recently become aware of this since this game was delisted on the 360 in 2011, and I thought I'd never get to play it again. So I'm really happy to have the means to play this childhood classic. It does bear mentioning that the original devs of Marble Blast keeps the gameplay alive with Marble It Up, released in 2018. An update called Marble It Up Ultra was just recently released, and while I haven't actually played it, I'd like to at some point to support the devs. I feel bad for saying it, but Marble Blast is probably the reason I could never really get into Monkey Ball. Don't get me wrong, I've played the arcade game in a local arcade, and it's good fun, but I find controlling the stage a little disorienting. Marble Blast is a little more my speed, and if you haven't played it yet, I'd highly recommend it. Okay, I'm gonna be as brief as possible since honestly this game is its own story entirely, but to summarize, I really wanted to play this game as a big fan of the Spider-Man 2 game and Spider-Man in general. I did play the Wii version as the first Wii game I ever played, but the HD version on 360 and PS3 was out of my reach, and that was the version I really wanted. I got so desperate that I had my mom take me to a local GameStop to buy the PC version after saving enough allowance money. I was fully willing to commit to keyboard and mouse controls just to play it. Unfortunately, the GameStop clerk informed my mom that we would have needed a powerful enough PC to play it, and the family computer was a piece of shit Dell, so That was the end of that plan. Finally, after much convincing, I was able to buy the 360 version and play it on my older brother's Xbox. He was a little apprehensive to my recollection, but then realized he could use me to increase his gamer score by playing games he'd otherwise not touch and unlock achievements in them. So that kind of worked out for us. It was bittersweet to finally play it, but its only appeal to me now is niche value. I must apologize as I can't get footage of this stupid ass game since the controls are fucked on PC. The inputs are completely unresponsive. I can't move forward or left in the game, and down on the D-pad does nothing in the pause menu, while up on the analog stick does nothing in the pause menu. I really don't know why, as this game worked fine for me before, but now I just can't play it properly. I could get the PS3 version, but I'm sorry, I really don't want to spend money on this fucking game. And I know the PS3 version runs like shit, so I ain't wasting it. I'll just wait until I can figure out how to get the PC version working again. But otherwise, I'll save my further impressions of this game for a standalone video, if I can get it working on my computer again. I'm going to be real with you guys and admit I've never cared much for old school space shooters like Space Invaders and Galaga. Don't get me wrong, they're still pretty fun, and I've actually played quite a bit of Galaga in arcades, but otherwise I don't really find them that stimulating to play for any longer than 10 minutes max. It's all because I was spoiled by another arcade style space shooter that I first played on my older brother's Xbox over 10 years ago. Okay, I'm just gonna get it out of the way now so you have an understanding here. I fucking love Geometry Wars. Geometry Wars was originally a minigame Easter egg featured in Project Gotham Racing 2 for the original Xbox. You use the analog sticks to move and shoot down various geometric shapes. You have bombs to clear the screen, and you're rewarded with more and extra lives if you get enough points. Nice enemy variety, with the blue diamonds being the basic threat, green squares which avoid your shots, purple squares which split into two when shot, and black holes which suck up enemies and have to be destroyed before they explode and cause fast homing projectiles to close in on you. After some time, your gun gets upgraded, one with homing shots, which sounds nice until they orbit enemies and just makes it harder to distinguish other enemies, a faster firing gun, and a spread shot which, like Contra, is the best. All in all, it's a fun minigame to get sucked into. It genuinely gets really hard and chaotic once you have a million enemies flying around the screen with all the particle effects making it hard to see what's going on. In Project Gotham Racing 3, this minigame returned along with a remake of sorts called Retro Evolved. This minigame would end up getting so popular that Bizarre Creations would then release it standalone on Xbox Live Arcade. Retro Evolved is the real shit. The updated presentation smacks you in the face with the grid that's reacting to your shots, even more particles flying all over the place, and music done by Chris Chudley. Very appropriate music because it literally says the name of the game. When you get right down to it, it's the same basic game. I do love the extra sound design, like reaching a high score, or when a black hole explodes to let you know you fucked up. There's some additional enemies to spice things up, and once again, it gets very challenging. The version on Xbox 360, which is still available on the series systems, contains the original minigame version. Geometry Wars on Steam, however, doesn't for some strange reason, but otherwise is still the same game. The most interesting version, perhaps, is Geometry Wars Galaxies on Wii. Since this is still an Xbox recollection, I'll be brief. But it's the same Geometry Wars gameplay, but with a campaign, so to speak. You have a crapload of levels of several varying challenges with new maps and enemies. You have this new drone that helps you out and can be upgraded with a new currency called Geomes, which is also how you unlock more levels. Geomes also act as a new score multiplier, which, trust me, you're going to need because some of the score prerequisites take a really long time to reach. It's honestly my only real complaint with this game. While it's still more of the same Geometry Wars I love, it gets a little old fast, which isn't much of a problem for an arcade mode where the only goal is seeing how long you can survive and shoot for a higher score. But when you're motivated by getting enough currency to unlock the rest of the game and upgrading your drone buddy, then the variety can only carry my interest for so long before I feel like turning it off. I'll still say it's worth checking out. You still get Retro Evolved, which is the same mode as before. It's actually quite nice playing with the Wii Classic controller since the octagonal gates on the analog sticks help you feel where you're shooting without having to really pay attention to it. You can also play with the Wiimote via motion controls if you want to give that a try. Galaxies is a decent time sink, but it wouldn't be the true sequel to Geometry Wars. Geometry Wars 2 would be another game I played a lot on my brother's Xbox. It's also one I wouldn't be able to play for a long time since it's still relegated to Xbox Marketplace only. It hasn't, nor will it most likely ever, see another release on Steam or other platforms. The main upgrade over the original is new gameplay modes that shake up the formula. Deadline is similar to Evolved, except you can die as many times as you want, and you just have to get as high a score as possible within the time limit. King, you can only shoot within these safe zones, which don't last too long, so you gotta strategize your routes a little more carefully. Pacifism involves my new favorite enemy type with these reflectors that normally give you extra points if you ricochet shots off them, but also if you pass through them, they explode to destroy other enemies around them, which is your only offensive move in this mode. So it's a fun mode of grouping as many enemies as possible while going through as many reflectors as possible. Good stuff. Waves is pure madness, also involving a new enemy with these rocket ships that move back and forth. At first it's not so bad, but soon you'll have to literally shoot enough space for yourself before you get boxed in and kick the bucket. Sequence is sort of like a condensed campaign where you have to clear 20 levels of challenges while it gets increasingly more difficult. This mode could be considered the hardest since you're not just shooting for a high score, and getting to the end alone is extremely challenging. These new modes are a great time, and while you do have to unlock them one after the other, it really doesn't take that long, so you'll have the whole game at your disposal before you know it. All the new music kicks ass, and it's worth playing this game for the soundtrack alone. The addition of these new modes alone already makes this a better game than the original in my opinion, but of course that's not mentioning the one mode that really matters. Evolved remains as the true mode to represent what Geometry Wars is all about. I love the updated presentation, like how much darker the background is that's only illuminated by the lights around it, which combined with the enhanced neon effect on everything makes this game really feel like the interior of a dark arcade environment. The Evolved music gets a nice update with the sick drum beat that just adds to the high adrenaline. It's mostly the same mode as before, but with a few new gameplay changes. The scoring system is taken from galaxies with geomes from defeated enemies that increase your multiplier. This retroactively makes bombs more useful since you can collect all the geomes after clearing the screen. The new enemies like the reflectors and rockets are also incorporated in this mode. The difficulty seems a little more balanced in a way I can't really explain. It feels like enemies are easier to make out, so it's easier to dodge around things. This is great because the one thing that's absent is the upgraded guns from before, which at first really turned me off, but ultimately doesn't affect the fun value, so I don't miss it. In conclusion, Geometry Wars 2 stands as my favorite game in the series, and I'd highly recommend everyone to play it before it gets lost forever. I would like to briefly talk about Geometry Wars 3, which isn't a part of my Xbox recollection, but I probably won't get the chance to talk about it later, so I might as well cover it now. The original developer, Bizarre Creations, would shut down sometime after Geometry Wars 2. Some of their employees would form Lucid Games and develop Geometry Wars 3. I was really excited for it when it came out since it was 6 years since the last game. The new gimmick would be 3D level layouts, which looked really cool at first, but doesn't really do much for me, to be honest. There is a single player mode where you clear levels similar to galaxies, and I really don't care for this mode, to be honest. When I play Geometry Wars 3, I'm hitting up the classic mode, which contains all the modes from Geometry Wars 2. You still have Deadline, rack up enough points before the timer runs out. King, you can only shoot in safe zones. Pacifism, you can only destroy enemies with trigger gates. And Waves, where rockets keep filling the screen until you're overwhelmed. What's nice is that there's 2 evolved modes. Retro Evolved maintains the enemies, guns, and scoring system of the original Geometry Wars, and the other evolved mode is basically the same as Geometry Wars 2, just in this game's new art style. That's actually the best way to describe it. It's still the same Geometry Wars goodness, but in this new aesthetic, which, I'm going to be honest, doesn't do it for me. The 3D look to everything kind of makes this game feel a little cheap. The hit detection is harder to make out, especially with the black holes, and the way the camera pans around most of the modes is actually kind of disorienting. The new music is good, but not as good as the previous games, though that is just personal preference. The sound design in general isn't as stimulating to me. I really miss all the crunchy explosion and bassy sound effects. If this is the only Geometry Wars game you can get your hands on, then it's still really fun to play and most readily available. You still get all the gameplay from 2, just without that game's visuals and music. But because I love the visuals and music from 2 so much, it remains as my preferred entry. I'm still patiently waiting on another installment in Geometry Wars. Some point after playing Geometry Wars as a kid, my older brother would become a little more comfortable letting the younger siblings touch the Xbox. He would even set it up in the living room in the basement where my younger brothers and I got to try out more games together. We played several games, and without much confidence in chronological order, one of them is Pac-Man Championship Edition. I'm pretty sure I played the original in some capacity before, but I do have good memories of playing this version. It's basically a modern take on the Pac-Man gameplay with different rules. There's a plethora of several game modes of varying challenges. All are good fun, but to be honest, I can't really be bothered to play through them. It's kinda like Geometry Wars Galaxies, where the gameplay doesn't do enough for me personally to invest in more than half an hour at a time. My favorite way to play this game is in the Championship 2 mode, Score Attack. To briefly explain what makes this game different to the original, the ghosts now actively chase right behind you. The idea is to get as long of a chain as possible and then get the power pellet to devour them all in spectacular fashion. Fuck, it's satisfying. There are still roaming ghosts to keep you on your toes. Luckily, the game goes slow-mo before you run into them to give you time to react. You have bombs which puts all the ghosts in the center, but will resume chase after a few seconds. Another key component is how the maze itself is actively changing. Once you get all the small pellets on one half of the maze, a fruit appears. Once you collect that, the other half of the maze changes with more pellets and ghosts to add to the chain. What I like about this mode is actually how linear it is. It kinda guides you for a while until the speed ramps up, which is another thing that happens. Soon, the speed will go apeshit and your reflexes really begin to be tested. Because I am on a limited timer, it actually compels me to keep trying more than if it was just based on lives, since losing a life now wastes time, which is far more valuable here since seconds could be a big difference in high score. Overall, this game is awesome. It's by far my favorite way to play Pac-Man. You got all sorts of styles that pay respects to Pac-Man's past. You got several music tracks, and Pac-Man Rainbow is my favorite. I did try the sequel, and while it's been a while since I've played it, I remember it didn't grab me the same way the first one did. Give it a try if you want. It's a good time. When there's a game called The Impossible Game, it caught the attention of my brothers and I. It felt a little self-aggrandizing because, like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Sure enough though, this game would kick our asses. When it launched on Xbox, it was only the first level and you had to buy the other levels, which I believe my brother never did, since I only remember us playing that first level again and again. It's essentially a rhythm platformer where you only use one button to jump and navigate the obstacle course. You sort of play in rhythm to the song that plays, but that only helps for so long until it gets crazy as the level progresses. It's the kind of game that looks easier than it is. My brothers and I spent hours just trying to beat the first level. For a while, it really did feel impossible, but a few of us did manage to beat it, and that was a monumentally satisfying moment. There are a few more levels that further deepens the challenge with new gimmicks like inverting the level and limiting your vision, which really sucks. This game was the main inspiration for another popular game called Geometry Dash, but Impossible Game is the OG, and there is a sequel that I'll probably won't bother with, to be honest. I haven't even bothered beating the rest of the levels of the first game. Luckily, there is a practice mode where you can spawn your own checkpoints, so just for you, here's a totally legit, flawless run of Heaven. If there's one game that can spawn endless nostalgic memories, it's Minecraft. It's hard to imagine the time when this game first came out and was incredibly simple compared to how it is today. My latest time with Minecraft was on the Switch version, which is where all this footage comes from. It was pretty novel when it first came out. The sandbox genre was starting to really take shape, and Minecraft was the ultimate one where the player had to create their own goals. When my brothers first played it, I recall the only real sought after objective was just finding diamond, as it was the rarest resource and would craft the best tools in the game. My brothers spent a long time mining and crafting and yet never found diamond. They finally coaxed me into playing it after I pushed it off for a while, and within the first 2 hours, I found diamond. They were so pissed off and felt it was completely undeserved. I will say I think I do enjoy the console versions of Minecraft a little more than PC. I've played both quite extensively, and I think the console version is just a little more convenient. I like how the crafting is automated so you don't have to memorize recipes and all that. And for how I play Minecraft, a controller is more comfortable for me. I play Minecraft like I've always played Minecraft. Pretty slowly, peaceful mode, and simply creating my own elaborate mine system while exploring any cave I come across. I do like it with keyboard and mouse, but my back likes the controller, so that's what I stick with. The Switch version is pretty good, but I feel the new updates makes the game less stable and the environment doesn't seem to load as consistently as before. I'll stop there for now, as this game can be discussed for all time. One game that was a lot of fun for my brothers and I was Trials. We mainly played Trials Evolution, but I only have Trials HD, but the basic gameplay is still the same, so it shouldn't matter much. These games are so much fun. Again, a very simple premise of getting to the end of obstacle courses, except here it's on a dirt bike. The controls are horrible, but that's kind of the point. There's only a couple of inputs to move the bike, but you really have to have good control over the stick and triggers to maintain balance and speed. As a kid, these games were so much fun and hilarious. Losing and winning both have the same reward of watching the character get absolutely brutalized, usually by some explosion. Endless entertainment watching the character model get slapsticked around like a ragdoll. For as hard as some of these levels can be, it's extremely forgiving if you don't care about a good score, since there's plenty of checkpoints and retrying couldn't be more instant. I don't really have much more to say. The game is still really fun to play to this day, and it's so easy to lose track of time playing it, so if you go by dollar per hour, these games are a steal. Though I'm only speaking for Trials HD and Evolution. I haven't played any of the newer games. Around 2011, my older brother would hack his 360 and begin to pirate games with it. It was so surreal to see in action. I believe he downloaded an archive pack on his computer, which was then connected to a hard drive on his 360. He demonstrated and showed me how to load any game I want. The archive was accessible directly from the Xbox and any game could be installed. I don't really remember many games I played this way, but I do remember playing one particular game. Batman Arkham City remains today as one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, especially for superhero games. My first time playing this game was before it was even released. Similar to today, how games get leaked, which really sucks because everyone always uses it to spoil the game before it can even be played. Still, for me back in 2011, it felt pretty cool to play this game before most people. I'm pretty savvy to look up a guide whenever I get stuck, but I couldn't when playing Arkham City since none was published at that point. So it was cool to play it raw like that. I have further impressions on the Arkham series, but that's for a later time. My time with it on Xbox was brief, but special. It would finally be around this time when my younger brothers started getting their own Xboxes. I had recently gone through a gaming collection reset and was focused on retro games I neglected to play in my youth. Though there were still some games on HD consoles that I wanted to play. Two of them were the Sonic Boost games, Unleashed and Generations. I had already sunk my teeth into Unleashed on PS3 when I finally received one after going through hell to get one, but Generations was still on my list to play. Luckily, my younger brother had an Xbox 360, Generations, and allowed me to play it for, once again, unlocking achievements to increase his gamer score. Man, why do people give a shit about that? Anyway, it was awesome to play it since Generations is a sizable improvement to the gameplay compared to Unleashed, in my honest opinion. I actually have more to say regarding the Boost games, but I'll save that for another video. For now, I'll just say I really enjoy Unleashed and Generations, but remain ambivalent towards the rest of the Boost Sonic games. I did enjoy Frontiers quite a bit, but now I'm straying off topic again. This would conclude my experiences playing directly on an Xbox 360, which I know is a weird topic for a video, but considering I've still never owned one, I find it interesting to express my times playing games on someone else's Xbox. The 7th generation of consoles holds a lot of nostalgic value for me, as the jump to HD and Nintendo's transition to a more casual market with online connectivity and internet access made this generation feel like the last big leap before the new status quo. It goes without saying that I've still played many games that were available on Xbox, mainly on my computer, which the first of which I built in 2015. But as far as playing on an actual Xbox, I've only ever played on someone else's Xbox 360, or just recently I did purchase an Xbox Series S, since last year the holiday bundle was only $250 and I thought it was an awesome deal. And because it makes for a great backwards compatible and emulation machine. Sure, it's digital only, but it's not like I had an Xbox collection to begin with, so I honestly didn't care. If I were to be completely honest, I've only been playing Xbox 360 games on it, and truthfully, Unleashed at 60 FPS makes the price of admission worth it. That about sums up all I wanted to say for this video. For those who stuck with me to the end, I'm thankful and flattered that you didn't just immediately click away at the premise of this silly topic. I have a feeling on what video I want to do next, but finding time to work on it while playing all these new awesome games that's come out will be tricky. All told, I'm sure that will be it for me today, so all I have left to say is thank you for watching.